Hi, Marbs here, and welcome back to the Sprint 45, Episode 3. Can you believe we are at 3 episodes of this already? This time, in Episode 3, we look at the action and combat games that we find on Intellivision. Now, it's interesting to me that this is an area that, again, Intellivision has an interesting variety of games, but I think it's difficult for it to distinguish itself from the racing and flying games because I think it tended to get overshadowed by the space games. So, let's take a look at the games in Episode 3.
Armor Battle was one of the first 4 games released for Intellivision, and there was also an LED handheld game from Mattel by the same name. The Intellivision game was developed by Chris Kingsley, and it is a tank battle game for 2 players, and I think that's where a lot of the problems with this game has always been. The need for a player 2, I think, held this title back, like many of the early Intellivision releases with no computer player support. The game itself is okay, but early Intellivision game designs show in this one, but it still looked better than the equivalent tank battle game on the Atari 2600, and that was the goal at the time. It can provide some fun on Sprint if you happen to have a player too. B-17 Bomber is another Intellivoice offering, and it was developed by John Soule of Astro Smash fame. The game puts you in a World War II bomber and lets you shift the action from pilot to gunner to bombardier, depending on where you are in the run. The game released to strong reviews, and despite a down-to-the-wire development cycle, the game turned out to be quite good. The speech in the game suffers from the same undersampling and space issues limiting the dialogue as in other Intellivoice games. In another page from Intellivision's lore, the decision was made for this to not be included when foreign language dialogue was recorded. Why? Well, Mattel Marketing decided that a game which the goal was to drop bombs on France, Germany, and Italy would be inappropriate for the European market. However, like all foreign language dialogue, it was never used because the international version of Intellivoice was never put into production. Bomb Squad is another Intellivoice game where this time it is race against time to disarm a terrorist bomb. The voice background information helps you guide through the defusing process. The speech in this game suffers from the same undersampling and space issues limiting the dialogue that we've seen in other Intellivoice games. This game is not easy, but once you get the hang of it, the game is actually pretty fun. The foreign language dialogue was recorded for this one as well, but was never used because the international version of the Intellivoice never made it into production. The game was actually developed under the title Juggernaut after the 1974 Richard Harris movie, but prior to release, it was decided to go with the name Bomb Squad as it was felt that this was a better name to describe the game. Boulder Dash, released in 2015 by Elektronite Software in conjunction with First Star Software. Boulder Dash for the Intellivision is a highly regarded homebrew port of the 1984 classic. Despite not being available during the console's original lifespan, it is frequently cited as one of the best versions of the game across any retro hardware, and it is one of the best additions to the Sprint. The game does a great job at bringing the original puzzle formula to the Intellivision Sprint with 16 caves, 4 bonus caves, and 5 difficulty settings. Often cited by Intellivision experts as one of the best games on the platform in pushing the Intellivision to its limits, it continues to amaze Intellivision fans with its polished gameplay. Many don't know that Buzz Bombers was Mattel's answer to Centipede on the Intellivision. While I can't say that I see too much Centipede in this one, I do think Mattel was trying to do a deal with SC Johnson Wax to brand the game using the Raid Bug Spray brand, which I think would have really helped propel this game forward into a lot more notoriety. It was said that SC Johnson was not very receptive to the concept. The game is a good one, and I do think it is worthy to be revisited on Sprint. The Flight of the Bumblebee music was almost cut from the game by legal when they were not convinced that the song was in the public domain. Also, despite a lot of people saying this is a 2-player game, it is not. That was actually a misprint on the box that started that rumor when the game game was released. I never really played Frog Bog seriously till Casey, the Intellivision gamer, suggested I revisit this one. The game centers around, well, a frog in a bog that is hungry. Basically, you leap into the air to snag flies to feed your frog. If you miss and fall into the pond, you have to swim back to the lily pad in order to jump again. The controls are simple, and the day to night setting is interesting as you can jump frogs in the dark, which is kind of cool. This one is great for younger kids or people just trying to get the hang of the Intellivision controller. It's a good game, it plays well, but it's a little simplistic, that's for sure. Released as the 14th game for Intellivision, Sea Battle, which is often confused with Sub Hunt, is a game that offers a battleship-like experience, sort of, I guess. The game is a two-player offering, and you control your fleet against your opponent. You try to attack each other with minefields, torpedoes, and shells. The game is very tactical, and I did play a lot of this when I could find a player too. If it would have offered computer play, I think this one would have been a lot more successful, but no matter, I would suggest this one over Sub Hunt, and it's a lot of fun if you have two players. Mattelelectronics had an LED handheld called Sub Chase, but Sub Hunt is not that game, nor is it the Mattel Intellivision title, which is called Sea Battle, which this game is often confused for. This is a single player game where you control depth and speed of your sub to close in on targets and launch your torpedoes to destroy enemy ships. The title seems to be often confused with Sea Battle. The game is playable but may not offer some of the fun of other combat games because there's a lot of getting to the target and lining up the shot in this one. Not the funnest game by far, and I actually think Sea Battle is a far better game if you have two players.
So there you have it. That's the combat and action games in episode 3. Now, I think of note here is that recycling of the Mattelelectronics titles, Sea Battle, Armor Battle, a lot of these had LCD handhelds that I can remember owning back in the day. The games are kind of like that, sort of, maybe, in a general sort of way, but it's just interesting side note in Mattelelectronics history. Now, Frog Bog for me is one that I have found to be one that I keep coming back to on Sprint, and I really like playing it. I didn't own this one first time around, but it sort of gives off a Shark vibe to me, and I've really enjoyed playing this one. B-17 Bomber is the second IntelliVoice cartridge included in the Sprint 45, and unfortunately, well, it's okay. I mean, both of the IntelliVoice examples, I don't know, I mean, they're all right, but I would not say by any stretch of the imagination that they are any sort of great games. I really like the Tron game for IntelliVoice, and it's a shame that it isn't included here. Now, next time around, we're going to look at the strategy in RPG games in the Sprint 45, Episode 4. Now, smash that thumbs up button for me and comment down below. Tell me you like this Sprint content. Encourage me to keep going. My name is Marbs. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.